Hello, Clyde Sharady here. We recently had a chance to meet for the second time the Victorian Police Commissioner Ken Lay, who received us at his office in the city at Flinders Street, and we talked to him about the outcome of the inquiry, the public inquiry that Victoria Police initiated following the out-of-court settlement for the case that involved 6 young Africans and Victoria Police in relation to racial profiling. Now, as many of you may be aware, also important decisions were taken by Victoria Police to address the needs of the community with regards to the concerns that Victoria Police was involved in racial profiling. And we asked the Chief Commissioner a number of questions relating to how we move forward with the new measures that the police has taken. And it's a pretty interesting discussion. I'll let you watch it. And as usual, we will ask you to provide comments on our website. AMA will always continue to try to find the information where it is, including meeting the authorities and discussing with them the important issues that affect the African communities. Chief Commissioner, thank you very much for your time to African Media Australia. Talking of the Haile-Michaels case, which obviously you've been quite busy dealing with. Can you tell us what, in few sentences, because there's been a report that has been published, what should the average African Australian or any member of the public get from that inquiry?
This was quite a watershed moment for Victoria Police. It forced Victoria Police into a position where we had to stop and look at how we were dealing with a whole host of our engagement issues, which was, whilst it was enormously painful and quite expensive for us, it was something that needed to be done. So once again, I recognise the work of Daniel Haile-Michael and the other people to actually test Victoria Police and challenge us. The Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission have been enormously supportive of the work we've done. We're now rolling into this process of looking at our education, about how we can better educate our members, about how to deal with diverse communities, issues like bias and how that might manifest itself in the way we do our job. So that'll be a very important piece in actually helping our organisation grow and get better in this space. Obviously, the way we interact with people on the street, particularly around the process around receipting, which is going to be very interesting and challenging as well. But whilst we do this work, Clyde, I think it's also important to understand that it's going to be absolutely critical that this doesn't work unless there's strong leadership in Victoria Police. So I understand this, my senior management understand it, and many of our senior sergeants and sergeants understand it. But we are in a space now where we can make our organisation so much better in the next 2 to 3 years. There are a lot of people watching us do this. The Human Rights Commission for one, the African community, a whole host of other agencies that are making sure that we don't lose sight of how important it is to understand and respect our communities.
And you've proposed a 3-year action plan. Have you identified any challenges that may potentially arise in actioning that plan and how you can deal with them?
I don't think there's any doubt that the process around receipting is going to be very difficult. The research around the world is a little patchy. Some research says it's helpful, other research says it's not helpful, and we've had nothing ever in the Australian context. So it'll be interesting to do that work to see the impact in our environment. So that is going to be very challenging for us, but again, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to try something new. And look, it may well be that it's a slightly modified model of what's seen around the rest of the world. I don't know. We'll take the advice from all the very good people that are helping us think through this to to make sure that we do get some positive results out of us. But by far the work over the next 3 years, that's going to be the most challenging, I think. The other stuff around bettering our education, developing panels of wise counsellors that can help us understand particular issues, that's, I think, pretty straightforward. The receipting part isn't.
And when you look at that, the actual recommendations, it looks like you've adopted most of what has been previously requested, but what previously Victoria Police was not willing to take. What has changed?
I think in the early stages we're in that combative environment of a court case, and I've said this publicly on a number of times. When you get into the legal system, there's often winners and losers. That's no good when you're trying to solve problems like this. There needs to be a willingness to listen, to understand, to concede issues. I don't think the legal process let us do that. We're now in a process where we've engaged with a whole lot of people with different views. They've challenged our views. We've had opportunities to see what's world's best practice, exposure to academics that understand what works and what doesn't work, and it's taken our organisation along. There's no doubt about that it's helped us get to a far better space.
And when I speak to many of the community leaders and individuals, some say, well, it looks like Victoria Police is willing to change because they've resisted some of the changes previously, but now they've adopted them. Some see potentially that's because the force has been quite bruised or damaged with this, and it's all an exercise of public relations and other things that you as the leader, you may want change, but there are circles within the force that are not necessarily willing to bring the desired change, and they may resist your change. What do you say?
Look, we're on a journey. There's no doubt about that. There's no going back. We've been exposed to a whole host of groups, and again I come back to the Equal Opportunity Human Rights Commission, who have been absolutely fantastic in helping us find our way through that. Groups like that will help keep us on track and help to keep us accountable. We've got a process where we need to go back and report to the community every year or so about the work we're doing, so again that helps to keep the momentum in the organisation. I understand there'll be groups within the community that don't accept this, that say this might be window dressing, that we're not really serious, that we're just trying to get over a hump. Well, the truth will be, when we get through this and what the organisation looks like in the next 2 to 3 years, and I'm very confident that the broader community will see that Victoria Police has certainly come some way. So we need to win the trust, though, gain the trust of the community, and that trust will be gained when we actually produce results.
Do you expect a lot of resistance from your own organisation for this change?
Look, there's no doubt that there'll be some resistance from within our organisation. There'll be resistance from outside the organisation too, and you'll have seen recent media about where Victoria Police has been criticised for the actions we took against the member we sacked, that some people saw that as being too harsh. So there's some of that feeling out external to the organisation, and there's some internal as well. So as a leader, though, I need to push through that. This is what I believe's right. This is what my leadership group believes right. So we'll just keep pushing through that. We'll keep arguing the case, and keep setting a tone that racism in any form is not tolerated. Now, the bar's been set high now. Members that believe that they can insult or racially insult any group at all face the very real prospect of being dismissed from Victoria Police. Now, that's a very, very clear message into the organisation at the moment, and those actions won't change. That's what we're committed to, and that's what the broader community expect.
What are some of the things you may have learned throughout this inquiry process with regards to, the interaction between the force on the field with Africans or other ethnic groups? Is there anything new that has risen throughout this process?
Look, Victoria Police would often say about itself that its community engagement model was strong, that when you looked across Australia it was as good as any other community engagement model in any other jurisdiction. And look, that may well have been the case, but it's been interesting when you talk to some of the academics about what a really good engagement model looked like. We missed some of those elements. So we've now got an opportunity of having a model that is actually one of the best in the world rather than one of the best in Australia. Now, will that solve every piece of tension there is out there between police and communities? I suspect not. There will continue to be challenges, there always is. But I think we'll be a much better organisation, we'll be a fairer organisation, we'll be a much more respectful organisation. But we're going to have to continue to keep working at this. When we see bad behaviour, we're going to have to call it. When bad behaviour is reported by communities, we're going to have to take it seriously. And we're going to have to listen to the very many groups out there, to listen to their views, and perhaps we may not always agree, but we need to listen to those views respectfully and act on them when appropriate.
Yeah, talking of your engagement with the broader African Australian community, there has been some criticism from some of the prominent members that your engagement has been selective and that it hasn't been deep enough. There are academics who've got quite a lot of credentials and experience, and they have not been consulted on things that they could have contributed into what do you say in relation to that?
Look, I think this is a challenge when we're dealing with any new and emerging communities to actually identify who are actually the community leaders who have actually got influence in the broader community and make sure that we've got strong links with them. So we may not have been as good at this as we should have been in the past, although having said that, we have got many, many links into the African community at both the community level, the academic level, and the business level. But we've established advisory groups now where we'll try and identify the most appropriate, influential leaders in the community to help give us that advice. So that's certainly part of the 3-year action plan to make sure we do that. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. There are many people in the community that hold themselves up as leaders. Some are very influential, others aren't. But we need to be able to identify them with the most appropriate people, engage with them, and continually be challenged. All
right. And has Victoria Police seen any improvement in terms of how it... I know obviously all these things is part of a process, it will take time, but over the last year or so, given all that has happened, has there been any improvement in how the force engages with African and young people specifically?
Look, I'm probably not the best judge of that. The community is probably a better judge than I am. I understand there's still some cynicism out there about Victoria Police's intentions and how good we'll be at that. All I can say is, I'm deeply committed to this. I understand it's important to me personally and to the organisation. We'll continue to have challenges though. We understand that. We need to work through that. As I say, treat people respectfully and make sure that we've got really strong links into the community. I know though that my organisation is very, very clear about the expectations that the police leadership have. Some very strong messages have been sent internally about what I expect what I expect is appropriate behaviour and how people behave. And clearly, things like the stubby holder issue is a very, very a clear indication to my organisation that any actions, even remotely touching on racism, will result in people's jobs being at risk.
Some voices in the community say that Africans generally are over-policed and underprotected. What do you respond to that?
I guess again, it's the difficulty sometimes in engaging with new and emerging communities, that there's a lack of understanding sometimes on both sides. One from police in understanding the challenges and difficulties with new and emerging communities, and likewise with new and emerging communities not understanding police processes or us not explaining them as well as we should. So this will continue to be a challenge for us. As we go through the next 2 to 3 years, though, I'm sure that as Victoria Police opens up, as we get better with the engagement, well, many of those misunderstandings will be addressed, and I'm looking to a much brighter future.
Any specific message you would like to convey to the community through Africa Media Australia?
The African community is now becoming a very important part of the broader Victorian and Australian community. We understand that unless we engage properly and respectfully, that there will be tensions and challenges. So my undertaking to the African community is I'll work hard to ensure that Victoria Police does get better. There will be opportunities to challenge Victoria Police, advise Victoria Police. And as I say, I suspect over the next 2 to 3 years, the relationships will continue to blossom. There'll be a much better understanding by Victoria Police of the African communities, and there'll be a much better understanding of Victoria Police by the African communities. Now, that'll make us a stronger community. It'll make us a safer community.